Good morning, everyone. I was very excited when Soumya came to invite me for this wonderful morning, and I was like, okay, the room full of entrepreneurs, business people, Toastmasters. But I got a little intimidated when they said, okay, there are public speaking gold medalists here. I said, all right, what am I doing here? But anyway, I'll stick to what I do best, storytelling. You see, storytelling today is one of the most important aspects. I'll begin with a story. What say? So there are three little stories that I'm going to touch upon today, this morning. Some of these stories you would have already heard, but it will definitely connect you in a way to the brand's products and services in a much deeper way. My first story is about a man we all know. But before that, there's a disclaimer that I want to give. Everything I speak this morning will be based on my experience as a documentary filmmaker and my education into marketing and finance. What I feel is stories reach our hearts much deeply. The story is of a young boy who comes from Florence to London for a job at the age of 19. He comes and joins this hotel, Savoy. The hotel is one of the best hotels in London. And the beauty about this hotel is that this is the hotel which has the first elevator, which they call it as an ascending room. The job is to carry luxury bags for these people to their rooms. The best part is that the hotel elevator takes about 5 minutes to reach to the fifth floor where the guest rooms are. In these 5 minutes, this young boy looks at the demeanor of these guests. He looks at these guests closely. He makes notes on what they're wearing. What kind of bags are they carrying? What are they talking? On these notes, he does a little study. For over 2 decades, he does this study and he saves up some money. And when he goes back to Florence, he opens his first store. You know whom we are talking about? Any guesses? This is the elevator. We are talking about Gucci. The brand everybody knows if you're in Dubai. So whether I talk about a brand like Gucci or whether I talk about a brand like Mercedes, where the name was kept on the daughter of the founder of Mercedes, Emil Jelinek, or I talk about a brand which is this man who he was from US. At the age of 19, he wanted to be a cartoon filmmaker. And at that point of time, that was a very, very small market. He joined a newspaper agency as a creative head, but was thrown out of that newspaper for the lack of creativity. At the age of 28, he was completely broke. So we are talking about none other than Mr. Walt Disney. He gave us the biggest cartoon character that the world would ever have, Mickey Mouse. So what do these stories do? These stories, they connect us to the same people, the same brands, the same products, the same services in a much deeper manner when we know where they come from. What is their story? The brands get connected with their ultimate users in a much deeper manner. They intrigue you. The moment you come to know about the story of a brand, it intrigues you in a way. And above all, it motivates you. It motivates you when you listen to a story like the Walt Disney. It motivates you when you listen to a story like Gucci. We all are storytellers, aren't we? It is said 90% of conversations that happen today in a gathering, a business meeting, are on stories, right? You will always have this one person telling a story. Did you know about that? Did you hear about that? Have you been to Bahamas? Have you been to this? Because these are the stories which are on experiences of that particular person or experience of using a particular product. And these stories, the amazing bit is they will convince you. The moment you listen to a story about a person or a product or a place maybe, you will be Googling that particular place or a person, isn't it? You always get convinced when you listen to a story. And they have the power to reach out. You see, I'll give you an example. I introduce someone and say, okay, I have a friend of mine who is into real estate. It's a very broad introduction to give. But the moment I say, I have a friend who is the biggest aggregator for DMAC and probably has made one of the biggest deals in the region, let me send you his film. The introduction, the moment it becomes like this, it is because you know the story of that particular person. You know more about that particular person. And it becomes a much more effective communication to do for that particular friend of yours. I'll give you a little example. Often, when I have to make films, I make a lot of corporate films, and the founders, they come to me and say, my brand is not big enough. My story is not interesting enough. Should I be telling a story about myself, or should I be telling the story of my brand? So the thing is, this dilemma is with every entrepreneur today. But the fact is that you have reached this far by doing research on what you're doing, and you're selling it today, presenting it to the world, is big enough an achievement. People today want to know about stories. Gone are those days when founders, owners of products would be behind the scenes. Today, if you see an example like Mr. Rizwan Sajan in this region, he's founder of Danube, you see him upfront right there presenting his product, service, his real estate projects every day. So that's the power of storytelling. That's the power of founders telling their own stories. I'll give you an example. I'm a part of a business organization here. And what we do there is we do one-to-ones. Now, one-to-ones is a very interesting way of communicating with your fellow members. So it's a very, it's a core, one of the core practices that you do in this chapter. When you meet the person across a coffee, you don't talk about the product or service. Interestingly, you talk about where you come from, which hometown you have, what interests you have. These are stories. These stories, they form connectors. You find commonality with these people. You find connections. From those connections, you end up doing business. So it's a very interesting sort of reiteration of the same point that how important stories can be. Especially in today's world, hashtag today, having your digital footprint out there is extremely important. You know, 90% of people Google the product services they want to use, places they want to go, restaurants they want to eat in. They're all doing it online. So if your story is not out there, if they've not Googled you, if SEO has not put you right up there on the top of the pages, you're losing out on a potential business. Also, self-branding, as I said, has become extremely important today. To have your digital footprints right is essential for every business person. When people Google you, they should find you right on the top. Most of us has a website. Everybody has a website for their business, right? Your stories, your films are nothing but a video representation of those websites. In your website, you have an about, the column that speaks about your business, yourself, founders, your products, your services, what are your USPs. But a lot of people still shy away by having their own films or corporate films rightly told. That's why self-branding becomes very, very important in today's time. I'll give you an example of 3 corporate films that I made. And this will sort of help me prove my point, how important a corporate storytelling can be. Because that's the only way you can speak about the unique you. We are in a very competitive market today. Everybody is into a business for selling a product or a service, which many others are selling. The only thing that will differentiate you will be your unique you, your story. If you see, the first lady here is a friend of mine. She runs an insurance company. Now, for an insurance company, the biggest communication that they want to give is trust. So if you have a film where you have a testimonial of a client talking about your company and how satisfied he is, that barrier is immediately reached. It bridges the gap between the customer and the company. If you see, in the middle, I have Swati Rajpal from Vogue Interiors. She is an interior decorator and a designer. For them, showing their creativity becomes extremely important. And a film can easily resonate that. For Suhan Khan, who's a personal trainer, results become important. So if you see a transformation of before and after through a visual medium, it is much more effective than anybody looking at just the website or maybe just a message. Every film also needs an audience. Today, if you make a film, you need that to reach out. We are in a digital age. Thankfully, we have platforms like LinkedIn, like your own website, like Instagram, Facebook. All these films can be broadcasted on these platforms. And then you have platforms like PathbreakersWorldwide, where they put all these films together for the businesses making waves in the world. These only give you the wider reach. I'll give you an example of 2 documentaries that I made for National Geographic. The first documentary that you see on the left is Rays of Change. This documentary was on a solar company. It is India's largest solar company. They are making 14 megawatts of electricity in the heart of Bikaner, Jaipur. What is interesting is that they are not the only solar company in India. But the moment you now find a solar player in India, you will see a pop-up of Avada. Because they have taken that leap of telling their story through a medium of a film, through a platform like National Geographic. So that is the power of storytelling. That is the digital footprint now you have created for yourself for life. You see some company like Patel Engineering, they are involved in engineering projects throughout India. They've also tied up with National Geographic. We made documentaries on 6 of their projects. Now, amazingly, the same. The moment you look at the highest dam in India, the deepest tunnel in India, the Barabola sector rail line, you will see Patel's mention. So that is the power of telling your story, your pain that you've gone through doing what you're doing, the founder speaking about the project, and you create the footprint forever. Okay, a lot of information. I think a lot of information for the morning. I'll just try and sum it up and say stories are a great way of communicating about your business. It creates the deepest bonds between your product, your service, yourself, and your audience in a way that no other medium can. Also, it gives you the reach that your products or services is ultimately desiring for. One is your inner circle, if you see your family, friends, client, stakeholders, and then for having an ultimate reach through channels who support your businesses to give you the kind of audiences that you need. I'll leave you with a quote that is very, very relevant in today's time. It's no longer about the products you make, it's about the stories that you tell. Thank you very much.